Want to know what it's really like to be up close to a grizzly bear? On our trip to Kicking Horse, we met Boo, a rescued grizzly with an incredible survival story. The ranger shared his story and explained his behavior, and some of the things he did completely amazed us. This was my very first time seeing a grizzly up close, and it turned out into one of the most unforgettable adventures I've ever had. In this video, I'll take you inside the Kicking Horse Grizzly Bear Refuge, where you'll hear Boo's inspiring story, learn fascinating facts about how grizzlies survive in the wild, and see the little moments that made this visit so special. From Boo lounging by the pond, to crunching on berries, to showing off his playful side, you'll get to see it all, so keep watching. The drive from Banff was close to 2 hours, and the ticket price was $42. Make sure you don't bring any food that will attract him, and you have to ride this chair lift to go up there and see Boo. Hi. Oh wait, he's out there. Oh, he is.
Their face size. So again, like I said, Boo is pretty comfortable with this situation, but let's just respect his boundary. So when he's right here, he's curious, he's sniffing you all, so try not to lean over the fence, and also try to avoid crouching. Actually, I don't see that much anymore now that we have this style of chain link fence. We used to have sort of like something that was a little bit easier to crouch down and see through.
So does anybody want to guess how much he weighs at the moment? We always get varied answers here.
800 pounds.
Not quite.
Around 500?
A little bit more?
600?
600, yeah. So he's anywhere between 600 and 650
Nice.
So it does fluctuate.
His mother was shot and killed by a poacher right on the side of a regional highway outside of Quesnel, BC. The poaching incident was actually witnessed, so that's really how we know so much about the situation and kind of started the process of him being here with us. I don't know the motivation of the poacher. Since it was witnessed, he was eventually caught and fined about $9,000 a year later in court. I just want to clarify, like back in 2002, there was a perfectly legal grizzly bear trophy hunt still going on in British Columbia, but this person was not participating in that. That was something that was controlled by like a lottery entry system. It was fairly controversial for the last 20 or so years. It was ongoing and it's been banned since 2017, but just to be clear, the poacher was acting outside of that realm and I don't know why. If a cub loses its mother later in life, like during their second summer or even their third summer, the practice is usually just to kind of leave them be and whatever happens, happens.
That too is, like I said, so we can keep an eye on Boo over winter and make sure he's safe. And that is because, for those of you who don't know, Boo had a brother named Carrie, and Carrie did pass away during the winter time back in 2003.
Carrie's small intestine got twisted, something that would have been fatal to him quite quickly. And it was only discovered in the spring when he failed to wake up. This twisted intestine condition, this is something that can happen to a lot of animals, mammals, humans included. It would have been pretty much impossible for them to survive on their own. So they were about 5 months old At that point, they weighed about 10 to 12 pounds each. We have some photos of them in our yurt if you want to check out before you leave, just to kind of illustrate how small they were. Kind of imagine that the barrier fence comes up a little higher. We've just noticed that like Boo seems to know that this is a bit of a buffer zone between him and you guys, and sometimes if there's like an unfamiliar object such as a camera lens or a selfie stick or an extended phone, like sometimes he'll have his ears will flatten right back, like a sign of a little bit of like not being so comfortable with that.
He's quite a handsome fellow.
I think so, yeah. Just a couple of like etiquette notes for Boo. Like he's obviously pretty comfortable with the situation. Like he's not really showing us any stressed or aggravated behavior right now with his body language, but it's possible that he'll come closer. He often does come quite close to the fence, so just a couple of things to keep in mind. Try not to lean over the barrier fence with like your arms extended or cameras extended for a better photo. He might have even smeared some thawed out frozen berries so they're nice and pulpy and just smeared it right into the bark. We'll do that sometimes. Piece of meat in the habitat for him. We have a couple of different ways of doing it, but one of the ways is to close him out of this zone and just drag the animal right in while he can't get into this section. So for the deer earlier this year, that's what we did. We actually dragged it right to the grass. This was in early July. So this is all to gain the fat that will sustain him through the winter. So when a bear goes into dormancy, they actually don't eat or drink anything through that entire duration. And so their nutrition and their hydration both comes from the breakdown of their fat reserves. So I tend to use the word hibernation a lot just casually because I think most people learned it in school, knows what it means. In the animal kingdom, biologists make the distinction for bears and certain other larger mammals. They actually go into what's called torpor. So it's like a different style of hibernation than what's called true hibernation. So a good example of a true hibernator is like a marmot or a burrowing ground squirrel, something like that. They will make a burrow and their bodies will go into a really extreme like state of like shutdown. Like their metabolism will decrease dramatically, their body temperature will go down to just a few degrees above freezing, and it's an involuntary state. Like the animal has no control over when they can emerge from that. The tough hide he'll drag it into his pool. Why? I don't know, but it's something that he almost always does. So what he's chewing on right now, like I can see a bone and I can see it's like a bit of old deer hide. They end up in one of his like little swampy ponds, and he'll occasionally fish them out and just chew on them and stuff. I don't know if he's really eating all too much of it at this point. But yeah, and then sometimes he'll be kind of playful with them. Like sometimes you'll see him drag out an animal hide in his paws and kind of like flip it out of the water and slap it back down. So he'll do that occasionally. And that's something that like he does by instinct to be kind of protective of his food. He's not going to eat a big valuable meal right out in the open. For a wild bear, that would be way too risky for competitors. It took him about 4 days to completely finish the deer, but what he'll often do in these cases, because again, it's not the first time this happens. Brown bear is the name of the species, which is found worldwide. So grizzly bear is one of the two North American subspecies of the brown bear. So a characteristic of the brown bear is the hump. The advancement of like genome research, they've actually like now only recognize in North America two subspecies, the Kodiak and the grizzly. When he's close like this, it's really obvious to see some of the traits that would identify him as a grizzly bear, because he's, as you may know, there's in Western Canada and Western North America, their range overlaps with the American black bear, as the species is called. And in some cases they look quite distinct, but in others they can look quite similar. So like black bears, most of them are black, but not all of them. Especially in Western North America, like 20% of black bears can have brown fur. That's apparently a relatively recent genetic variation that arose in Western North America specifically. So those can be kind of confusing. Sometimes they get called cinnamon bears because it's often like a reddish brown, but from a distance it can make them look pretty similar to a grizzly. Grizzlies are bigger on average, but there's going to be some size overlap, like a young adolescent grizzly and a male black bear could be around the same size. But the hump on a grizzly's shoulders, that's pretty characteristic to them, and that's muscular. and it comes from how they evolved. Like with a lot of animals, form and function are really closely intertwined.
Seeing Boo up close was such an unforgettable experience for me, not just because he's a rescued grizzly, but because of everything we learned about how these incredible animals lived and survived in the wild. If you've ever get the chance to visit the Kicking Horse Grizzly Bear Refuge, I can't recommend it enough. So happy I saw Boo! Thank you for watching!